Hey, Reddit. I don't know where to start. I guess I should just dive into it. My name's Eric, and I'm here because my marriage has turned into a complete dumpster fire. My wife, Lisa, and I have been married for almost 7 years now. We met in college, hit it off right away, and everything just seemed to click. She was smart, driven, and honestly, I thought she was the one person in the world I could trust more than anyone. But looking back, there were signs I should have noticed. Lisa started working late more often about a year ago. I chalked it up to her trying to impress her new boss or getting ahead in her career. We were both ambitious people, and I figured she just wanted to climb the ladder. But soon, the late nights turned into networking events on weekends and urgent meetings during vacations we had planned months in advance. She always had an excuse, always a reason why her job had to come first. At first, I tried to be understanding. I wanted to support her, you know? I even joked about her having an affair once or twice, just to get a reaction. She'd laugh it off and call me silly, saying things like, "You know you're the only one for me, babe," or "Don't be ridiculous. Who else could put up with me?" But that laughter? It was hollow. The more I think about it now, the more I realize she was testing the waters, seeing if I was suspicious. I was a fool, completely blind to the fact that my wife, the woman I vowed to love and protect, was running around behind my back. The breaking point came last month. Lisa told me she had to go out of town for a work retreat. I didn't think much of it until I started getting these weird texts from some mutual friends. One of them, Amanda, asked if I was okay. Of course, I'm fine, I told her, not understanding why she'd even ask. She hesitated and then sent me a message that hit me like a ton of bricks. "I'm not sure how to say this, but you need to keep an eye on Lisa. She's been acting differently." That's all she wrote, but it was enough. My heart started racing, and a pit formed in my stomach. I needed to know what was going on. So, I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I hired a private investigator. It felt wrong, like I was betraying her trust, but I needed answers. Was I crazy? Was I overreacting? The investigator didn't take long to find what I feared most. Photos, texts, hotel receipts, all laid out in front of me like some twisted jigsaw puzzle of betrayal. And the man she was sneaking around with? It wasn't just some random coworker. It was my best friend, David. I was floored. Staring at those photos of them holding hands, laughing together, I felt like I was suffocating. 7 years of marriage, and it was all a lie. But the worst part? This wasn't even the most shocking revelation. It was what happened when I decided to confront her, at what should have been a joyful moment, a surprise party thrown in my honor. I'll never forget that night. My friends and family had organized a surprise party for me, just a casual get-together to celebrate my recent promotion at work. Lisa played the perfect wife that day, pretending to be excited, smiling like nothing was wrong. I should have known something was up when she insisted I arrive late because she had one last errand to run. When I pulled up to the house, everything seemed normal. Lights on, people mingling, music playing softly. As I walked in, everyone yelled, "Surprise!" I looked around at all the familiar faces, but something felt off. My gut told me there was more to this than just a party, and I was right. A few minutes into the festivities, I noticed Lisa was missing. I asked around, and someone said she'd gone upstairs to get something. I made my way up, hoping to find her alone, but instead, I found the door to our guest bedroom slightly ajar. Voices, low whispers, and then, I heard it, David's voice, along with Lisa's giggling. My heart pounded in my ears as I pushed the door open. There they were, my wife and my so-called best friend, too close for comfort. Lisa's hair was messed up, her shirt buttoned all wrong, and David had this smug grin on his face. They didn't even try to hide it. When they saw me, Lisa's face drained of color, and David just sat there, cool as a cucumber. "What the hell is this?" I demanded, my voice trembling. Everyone downstairs must have heard me because, within seconds, people were gathering at the door, peeking in, trying to figure out what was going on. Lisa blinked, like a deer caught in headlights. "Eric, it's not what it looks like. We were just what?" I cut her off, my voice louder than I intended. Just making a mockery out of me? At my own party? In my own damn house? David, the coward, tried to stand up, but I shoved him back down onto the bed. Don't you dare move, I warned. You're going to sit there and watch this play out. And then I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I took out my phone, opened our wedding group on Facebook, and started a live video. Hey, everyone, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. This is Lisa, my wife, and David, my best friend. Apparently, they've been having a little fun behind my back. I thought you all might want to know how much of a perfect match they are. The comments started pouring in, people in shock, some calling me crazy for airing out dirty laundry in public, others cheering me on. But I didn't care. I wanted everyone to know what kind of people they were. Lisa lunged forward, trying to grab my phone, but I stepped back, keeping her at arm's length. Eric, stop this right now, she shouted, her face red with a mix of anger and embarrassment. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I snapped. I understand that you're a lying, cheating. I couldn't even finish the sentence. My chest was tight, my hands shaking. You know what? Keep making excuses. See if anyone believes you now. The room fell silent. Lisa's eyes darted around, realizing the severity of what just happened. And David? He just stared at the ground, unable to meet my gaze. After the live stream ended, I walked out of the room, leaving Lisa and David to deal with the fallout. As I made my way back downstairs, the party guests parted like the Red Sea. The expressions on their faces ranged from pity to disbelief. Whispers buzzed around me, but I ignored them. I needed air. I stepped outside, my heart still racing, and sat on the porch steps. It felt like the walls were closing in on me. How could she do this to me? How could he do this to me? 1,000 thoughts swirled in my mind, each one more painful than the last. I wasn't out there alone for long. Amanda, the same friend who'd warned me, came outside and sat beside me. She didn't say anything, just placed a hand on my shoulder. It was comforting in a way, knowing at least someone had my back. I'm so sorry, Eric, she murmured finally. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. If I opened my mouth, I'd either scream or break down in tears. And I didn't want to give Lisa or David the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. They deserve each other, I muttered through gritted teeth. They're both trash. Amanda looked at me, a strange expression on her face. Do you want to know the truth? She asked softly. More than anything, I whispered, my voice barely audible. She took a deep breath, as if steeling herself. This isn't new, Eric. They've been seeing each other for months, probably since last year. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Months? I echoed, my voice hollow. You knew? I didn't have proof, she said quickly. Just suspicions. And I didn't want to hurt you if I was wrong. Anger bubbled up inside me, hot and bitter. Well, congratulations, Amanda. You weren't wrong. She flinched at my words, but I couldn't bring myself to apologize. Not then. I was too raw, too angry, and too devastated. Eventually, I went back inside. Lisa and David were still upstairs, probably too cowardly to face the crowd downstairs. I didn't care what they were doing anymore. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, took a long swig, and then made my way back to where most of the guests were gathered. Show's over, everyone, I announced, my voice steady despite the turmoil I felt inside. You can all leave now. One by one, people shuffled out, offering murmured condolences and pats on the back. But none of it mattered. All I could think about was Lisa's face when I caught her. The shock, the fear, and the guilt? No, not guilt. Regret, maybe, that she got caught. But guilt? I doubted it. After everyone left, the house felt empty, hollow, like the life had been sucked out of it. I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. And then, the door creaked open. Lisa walked in, her eyes puffy and red from crying. She looked like a mess, but I couldn't muster any sympathy. Eric, please, she pleaded, her voice trembling. We need to talk. I scoffed. Now you want to talk? After everything? I'm sorry, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Sorry? I repeated, standing up so fast the room spun. You're sorry? For what, exactly? For getting caught? For humiliating me in front of our friends and family? For hurting you, she said softly, her eyes downcast. For a moment, I almost believed her. Almost. But then I remembered the smirk on David's face, the way they'd looked at each other like I was the intruder, not them. You're not sorry, Lisa, I said, my voice cold. You're just sorry you got exposed. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up, replaying everything in my mind, wondering where I'd gone wrong, how I'd missed the signs. But no matter how much I tortured myself, the answer was clear. I didn't do anything wrong. This was all on Lisa and David, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. The next morning, I called Lisa's best friend, Sarah. I knew it was risky, but I needed someone on the inside, someone who could help me figure out my next move. Sarah and I had always been friendly, and I knew she despised David. She answered on the second ring. Eric, what's going on? Is everything okay? I took a deep breath. No, Sarah, nothing's okay. I need your help. Can we meet? There was a pause, and then she sighed. Yeah, of course. Where? We met at a coffee shop across town, where no one would recognize us. I told her everything, about the party, the cheating, and my plan to get back at them. I want to hurt them, Sarah, the way they hurt me. I want them to feel the pain I'm feeling. She looked at me for a long time, and then, to my surprise, she smiled. I think I know just the way to do that. Sarah's smile was unsettling, but it gave me hope. Hope that I wasn't alone in this nightmare. Over the next week, we devised a plan, one that would shake Lisa and David to their core. It had to be something big, something they'd never see coming, and something that would leave a lasting impact. The first step was gathering all the dirt we could on both of them. It turned out that Sarah, being Lisa's confidant, knew a lot more than I expected. She showed me messages Lisa had sent her over the past few months, bragging about her affair with David. The way she talked about it made my blood boil. Lisa didn't just cheat, she reveled in it. She called David her upgrade and me her placeholder. Sarah winced as I read the messages, but I couldn't stop. Each word was like a dagger in my heart, but I needed to see it through. I needed to understand just how deep her betrayal ran. What else? I asked, my voice low, trying to contain my anger. Lisa's been keeping some private photos of you too, Sarah said cautiously, sliding her phone across the table. But I don't think it's just for fun. I think she's been planning something else, something that could really hurt you. I stared at the screen, my stomach churning. There were photos of Lisa and me together, but also some that were clearly intended to make me look bad. Ones where I was drunk at a party, passed out on the couch, or just looking disheveled. It was as if she was collecting evidence, twisting moments of vulnerability into weapons against me. So, she was planning to make me look like the bad guy, I muttered bitterly. Sarah nodded, biting her lip. I think she wanted to use these if you ever tried to divorce her. You know, to get the upper hand in court. But that's not going to happen now. Not after what you did at the party. My mind was reeling. Lisa wasn't just unfaithful. She was malicious. She wanted to destroy me. And for what? To run off with David and play house? It didn't matter. I wasn't going to let her succeed. We decided that the best way to hit them where it hurt was through their social circle. David's wife, Emma, was still in the dark about everything. She thought he was the perfect husband, the one who'd never stray. And Lisa? She had cultivated this image of being a strong, independent woman, loyal to her husband despite all the long hours he worked. The plan was simple: destroy their reputations. It started with a carefully worded email to Emma, one that included all the evidence we'd gathered, photos, texts, everything. I sent it from an anonymous account, but I made sure it was direct enough that she couldn't ignore it. It didn't take long for the chaos to begin. The very next day, I received a message from Emma. It was brief and to the point. Meet me at the Lighthouse Cafe at 2 p.m. Don't be late. I didn't know what to expect. Was she furious? In denial? ready to rip my head off for what I'd exposed? I had no idea, but I knew I had to face her. When I arrived at the cafe, Emma was already there, nursing a cup of coffee. She looked up as I approached, and for a moment, I saw pure anguish in her eyes. But then she blinked, and her expression hardened. "Sit," she said flatly, pointing to the chair across from her. I did as she asked, and we sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she spoke. "Why did you wait so long to tell me?" I swallowed, struggling to find the right words. "I didn't know for sure until recently," I admitted. "And even then, I wanted to handle it privately. But after I caught them at the party, I just couldn't let it slide anymore." Emma's fingers tightened around her coffee mug. "You don't think I deserve to know sooner?" Her voice cracked, but she quickly regained her composure. "I thought we were friends, Eric. I thought you respected me enough to tell me the truth." Guilt washed over me. She was right. I should have told her earlier. But I'd been so caught up in my own pain, my own humiliation, that I hadn't considered how this would affect her. "I'm sorry, Emma. I really am. But I was a wreck. I wasn't thinking clearly." She looked down at the table, her shoulders slumping. "David, he was my whole world. And now, thanks to you, I know he's just a liar. Just like Lisa." The venom in her voice was palpable, and for a moment, I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. Lisa and David deserved this. They deserved to have their lives torn apart, just like they tore mine apart. "What are you going to do?" I asked cautiously. Emma's gaze shifted, and I saw a glimmer of something dark in her eyes. "Oh, I'm going to destroy him. Everything he's worked for, every connection he's made, every dream he's had. It's all going to crumble. And I'm going to make sure Lisa pays too." A chill ran down my spine. Emma wasn't messing around. She was out for blood, and I realized then that I wasn't the only one bent on revenge. True to her word, Emma set things in motion almost immediately. She contacted David's boss, his colleagues, and even a few influential people he'd been networking with. Within a week, David's life was in shambles. He lost his job, and word spread quickly about his inappropriate behavior with a married woman. Lisa, of course, was caught in the crossfire. Rumors swirled around her workplace, and I heard through the grapevine that she'd been put on administrative leave pending an investigation. The strong, independent image she'd cultivated was falling apart, and I couldn't help but revel in it. But I wasn't done. Remember Sarah? Well, she suggested I take things a step further. And what better way to stick it to Lisa than by doing something truly unexpected? Getting involved with her best friend, Gina. Now, before you judge me, hear me out. Gina had always been a good friend of ours, but I knew Lisa was particularly jealous of her. They'd had some falling out a while back, and I suspected it was because Gina had always been more successful, more attractive, and more everything than Lisa. Getting close to Gina would be the ultimate slap in the face. So, I reached out to Gina, told her what had happened, told her about the party, the Facebook post, everything. To my surprise, she was more than willing to meet up and talk. One drink turned into two, and before I knew it, we were seeing each other almost every night. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. Gina was actually a breath of fresh air. Someone who understood my pain and didn't judge me for wanting to lash out. And the best part? She was perfectly okay with playing along, making sure Lisa knew every single detail of our newfound friendship. Lisa's reaction was explosive. She showed up at my doorstep one evening, her face twisted in fury. "How could you?" she screamed, shoving me hard in the chest. "How could you go after my best friend? Are you that desperate to hurt me?" I smiled coldly, savoring her rage. "Oh, sweetheart, you've got it all wrong. I'm not desperate to hurt you. I'm just giving you a taste of your own medicine. How does it feel?" She lunged at me, but I caught her wrists, holding her at bay. For a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Regret? Sorrow? But then it was gone, replaced by the same icy contempt I'd grown to despise. "Go to hell, Eric," she spat, yanking her hands free. "Too late," I replied quietly. "You already dragged me there." Things escalated quickly after that. Lisa tried to turn things around, claiming I was the one who'd been unfaithful first. She spun stories about how our marriage had been falling apart long before David came into the picture, how I'd neglected her, pushed her away. But I wasn't about to let her rewrite history. I shared everything. Every message, every photo, every little detail of her affair. I put it all out there. On Facebook, in our community group, even to her own family. I wanted people to see her for who she really was. A liar. A manipulator. Lisa's world crumbled. Her parents disowned her. Her friends turned their backs. And David, well, David was out of the picture, too. Turns out, Emma wasn't content with just ruining his career. She filed for divorce, took everything he had, and left him with nothing. It was poetic justice, watching them both crash and burn. But revenge, as satisfying as it was, didn't take away the pain. I still lay awake at night, wondering where it all went wrong. Wondering if, somehow, I could have stopped it. But then I remember the look on Lisa's face that night at the party. The pure shock, the horror at being exposed. And I know I did the right thing. Gina and I continued seeing each other after everything went down. At first, it was just casual, two people trying to find comfort in the aftermath of a betrayal that tore through both our lives. But something changed. The more time we spent together, the more I realized I genuinely enjoyed being around her. She wasn't just someone I was using to get back at Lisa. She was someone who made me laugh again, who helped me see the world in a new light, free from the cloud of misery Lisa had left behind. But as things between Gina and me progressed, Lisa's behavior grew more erratic. She started calling me late at night, her voice slurred and desperate. "Eric, we need to talk," she'd say. "You can't just throw everything away like this. We have history. We're married." I would hang up every time, not wanting to engage. I knew she was struggling with the fallout, but it wasn't my problem anymore. She'd made her bed. Now she had to lie in it. But one night, she showed up at my apartment, pounding on the door like a madwoman. "Eric, open the door," she screamed, her voice carrying through the entire building. "We need to fix this." Reluctantly, I opened the door, only to find her standing there, mascara streaked down her cheeks, eyes wild and frantic. "Lisa, go home," I said firmly. "You're not welcome here." She pushed past me, stumbling into the living room. "You're really with her?" she spat, looking around like Gina might be hiding somewhere. "You're really going to throw everything we had away for her?" I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Lisa, it's over. We're over. Why can't you just accept that?" "Because you're mine," she shrieked, and for a moment, I saw a glimpse of the woman I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. The one who'd been passionate, full of life. But now that passion was twisted, darkened by jealousy and desperation. "You have no right to say that," I replied quietly. "Not after what you did. You chose him, remember? David. You thought he was your upgrade. So why are you here?" She deflated, shoulders slumping. Because I made a mistake," she whispered. I thought he was different. But he just used me, Eric. He used me, and now I have nothing." "Good," I said coldly, taking a step back. "You deserve nothing." Her eyes flashed with anger, but then, just as quickly, the rage disappeared, replaced by something that almost looked like regret. "You're really not going to forgive me, are you?" "No, Lisa, I'm not." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "You didn't just cheat. You tore our life apart, and for what? For some fleeting thrill? For someone who turned on you the second things got tough? That's not love, Lisa. That's betrayal." She stared at me, and for a moment, I thought she was going to break down. But then, to my surprise, she laughed. A harsh, bitter sound that sent chills down my spine. "Fine, Eric. You want to be with her? Go ahead. But don't come crying to me when she does the same thing I did." "Get out," I said, pointing to the door. "Now." Without another word, she turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, staring at the spot she'd just vacated, a strange mix of emotions churning inside me. Anger, sadness, relief. But most of all, I felt free. The next few weeks were a blur. I threw myself into work, trying to ignore the whispers and stares from people who knew what had happened. Lisa's little breakdown at the party had made the rounds, and everyone had an opinion about it. Some people thought I was being too harsh, that I should have handled things more discreetly. Others applauded me for standing up to her and exposing the truth. But I didn't care what they thought. My focus was on getting my life back on track, without Lisa, without the baggage of our failed marriage weighing me down. Gina was a big part of that. She was my rock, always there to pick me up when I felt like I was slipping back into old habits of self-doubt and anger. But as much as I enjoyed being around her, there was still a nagging voice in the back of my mind, reminding me that this had started as a revenge plot. Could we ever be more than that? Could we build something real on the ruins of my past? One night, as we sat on my couch, a bottle of wine between us, Gina turned to me, her eyes serious. "Eric, can I ask you something?" "Of course," I said, taking a sip of my drink. "Is this real?" she asked softly, gesturing between us. "I mean, I know how it started, but do you actually want to be with me? Or am I just convenient?" Her words caught me off guard. I set my glass down, searching her face. "Gina, you're not just convenient. I care about you. A lot. But I'm still trying to figure things out. After everything that happened with Lisa, it's hard to know what's real anymore." She nodded slowly, looking down at her hands. "I get it. I do. But I need to know if this is going somewhere. Because I can't be your rebound, Eric. I can't be your revenge." I reached out, taking her hand in mine. "You're not, Gina. You're more than that. I need time." "Time," she echoed, a small, sad smile tugging at her lips. "That's fair. But don't take too long, okay? Because I want more. I deserve more." She was right. She did deserve more. But could I give it to her? Could I let go of the past and move forward with someone new? I didn't know the answer. Not yet. Just as things were starting to settle down, life threw me another curveball. It came in the form of a phone call, one that sent my world spinning yet again. "Eric, it's Amanda." I frowned, surprised to hear from her. "Amanda? Is everything okay?" She hesitated, and I could hear the anxiety in her voice. "No, Eric, it's not. Lisa, she's in trouble." "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart rate picking up. "It's bad," Amanda whispered. "She got fired from her job. Something about inappropriate conduct and violating company policy. And Eric, I think she's losing it. She's been calling people, saying crazy things. I'm worried about her." I took a deep breath, trying to process what she was saying. Part of me wanted to shrug it off. Lisa wasn't my responsibility anymore. She'd made her choices, and now she had to live with them. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the good times, the love we'd shared before everything went to hell, couldn't ignore it. "What do you want me to do, Amanda?" I asked quietly. "I don't know," she admitted. "I just thought you should know. Maybe you could talk to her. Help her see reason before she does something stupid." It was the last thing I wanted to do, but I couldn't shake the feeling that if I didn't reach out, something terrible might happen. So, against my better judgment, I agreed. The next day, I drove to Lisa's new apartment, some dingy little place on the outskirts of town. When she opened the door, I barely recognized her. She looked broken, gaunt, like a shadow of the woman she used to be. "What are you doing here?" she muttered, glaring at me. "I came to talk," I said evenly. "Amanda's worried about you." "Amanda's a busybody," Lisa snapped, but there was no real heat in her voice. She turned and shuffled back inside, leaving the door open. Taking it as an invitation, I followed her in. The place was a mess. Empty bottles littered the floor, clothes were strewn everywhere, and the air was thick with the smell of stale cigarettes and something else, something bitter and sharp. "Lisa, what are you doing to yourself?" I asked, unable to keep the concern out of my voice. She laughed, a hollow, joyless sound. "What does it look like, Eric?" "I'm living the dream." I stared at her, heart aching. This wasn't the woman I'd fallen in love with. This wasn't even the woman who'd cheated on me and torn my life apart. This was someone else, someone lost. "Come on," I said softly, stepping closer. "Let's get you cleaned up." She looked at me, eyes filled with pain and something that almost resembled hope. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I don't want to see you destroy yourself," I said quietly. "Not like this." Helping Lisa that night was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. I wanted to scream at her, to remind her of all the pain she caused me, to walk away and never look back. But I couldn't. Maybe I was a fool, or maybe I still had some shred of humanity left in me that didn't want to see her completely self-destruct. Whatever the reason, I stayed. She resisted at first, refusing my help and yelling at me to leave. But after a while, her anger melted into sobs. Heart-wrenching, body-shaking sobs that tore through me like a knife. I watched her fall apart, breaking down right there on the filthy floor of her apartment. I'd never seen her like that, so utterly defeated. It was like looking at the remnants of a hurricane. Everything beautiful and strong about her ripped to shreds. "Lisa, you need to stop this," I said softly, kneeling beside her. "You're better than this." She looked up at me through tear-filled eyes, a bitter smile twisting her lips. "Better? Really? Eric? What's left for me to be better for? I lost everything. My job, my friends, my family, you." Her voice cracked on the last word, and she buried her face in her hands. "You're the only good thing I ever had, and I ruined it. I ruined us." Hearing her say that should have felt like vindication. It should have made me happy, knowing she regretted what she'd done, but it didn't. It just made me feel empty. "Why did you do it, Lisa?" I asked quietly, finally voicing the question that had haunted me since the day I caught her with David. "Why him? Why betray me like that?" She sniffled, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "I don't know," she whispered. "I was stupid. I thought I needed more. I thought I could have it all, keep you and still have some excitement on the side. But I didn't realize how much I needed you until I lost you." "Needed me?" I repeated, incredulous. "Lisa, I was right there. I was always there for you. And you threw it all away for what? Some cheap thrill?" Her gaze dropped, shame written all over her face. "I know. I'm sorry, Eric. I really am." "Sorry doesn't fix anything," I said, standing up and taking a step back. "It doesn't change what you did. It doesn't undo the lies, the betrayal. You can't just say you're sorry and expect everything to go back to normal." She flinched, her shoulders shaking as another sob escaped her. "I know. I wish I could turn back time. I wish I could be the person you deserved." "Yeah, well," I muttered, turning away. "It's a little late for that." I stayed with her that night, making sure she didn't do anything drastic. We didn't talk much after that. I let her cry herself to sleep on the couch, while I sat in the armchair, staring blankly at the wall. My thoughts were a tangled mess of anger, pity, and confusion. What was I supposed to do now? Part of me wanted to help her, to get her back on her feet. But the other part, the part that still remembered every single lie, every smirk, every time she'd chosen David over me, wanted nothing to do with her. When dawn broke, I left. I left her sleeping, a note on the kitchen table that simply read, "Get help. You need it." After that night, I tried to put Lisa out of my mind. It wasn't easy, especially since she started blowing up my phone every few days, leaving long, rambling messages about how she was sorry, about how she was trying to get better, about how she missed me. I ignored most of them, but it was hard not to be affected. The woman who had been so strong, so self-assured, was crumbling before my eyes. And a part of me still felt responsible, even though I knew I shouldn't. I didn't force her to cheat. I didn't force her to make those choices. Still, guilt has a funny way of latching onto you, doesn't it? Gina noticed the change in me. She saw the way I'd tense up whenever my phone buzzed, how I'd get quiet and distant after listening to one of Lisa's messages. One evening, she confronted me. "Eric, you need to decide what you want," she said, her voice gentle but firm. I know you're trying to move on, but it feels like you're still tied to her. Like you're not really here with me." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "I don't know what to do, Gina. She's falling apart, and you feel responsible," she finished for me. "But you're not. You know that, right? Lisa made her choices. She's dealing with the consequences. You don't owe her anything." "I know," I murmured, "but it's not that simple." She looked at me for a long moment, then reached out, cupping my face in her hands. "Eric, I care about you, but I can't be with you if you're still tied up in knots over her. I need to know if you're really here with me, or if you're still trying to fix something that can't be fixed." I swallowed hard, my heart aching. Gina was right. She deserved better than this. Better than someone who was still caught in the wreckage of his past. But could I let Lisa go? Completely, once and for all? "I'm with you, Gina," I said finally, the words feeling like a promise. "I'm done with Lisa. I want to build something new with you. Something real." She searched my eyes, as if trying to see if I really meant it. Then she smiled. A small, tentative smile, but it was real. "Okay," she whispered. "Then let's do that. Let's move forward." And just like that, a weight lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe again. Like maybe, just maybe, there was hope for me after all. A month passed without any more drama from Lisa. I focused on my work, on spending time with Gina, on finding a sense of normalcy again. It wasn't easy, but I was getting there. Day by day, I felt stronger, happier. Then, out of the blue, I got a letter in the mail. There was no return address, but I recognized Lisa's handwriting instantly. My heart pounded as I tore it open, unsure what to expect. A long, rambling apology? Another desperate plea for forgiveness? But it was neither. Instead, it was a short note, written in neat, careful script. "Eric, I'm leaving town. I got a job offer in another state, and I think it's for the best if I take it. I've been working on myself, trying to understand why I did the things I did. I know I hurt you, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I want you to know I'm truly sorry. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I destroyed it. I'm not asking you to take me back. I'm not even asking you to respond. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for being there for me, even when I didn't deserve it. Thank you for giving me a chance to fix myself. I hope you find happiness, Eric. Real happiness. The kind I couldn't give you. Goodbye. Lisa." I stared at the note for a long time, my emotions a tangled mess. Relief, sadness, and, dare I say it, hope. Maybe this was her way of letting go, of giving us both a chance to move on. I folded the letter carefully, placing it back in the envelope. Then I stood up, walked to the fireplace, and tossed it into the flames. I watched as the paper curled and blackened, turning to ash. This was it. This was closure. Turning away, I felt lighter, freer. Lisa was gone, and my chapter with her was finally over. Gina and I are still together. We're taking things slow, building something new, something healthy. It's not perfect, and I still have my bad days. But I'm learning to let go, to forgive, not just Lisa, but myself too. So, for anyone out there going through something similar, here's my advice. Don't let your past define you. Don't let someone else's mistakes chain you down. You deserve happiness, real happiness, and it's out there waiting for you. Take it from someone who's been through hell and back. It gets better. It really does. I thought the letter from Lisa would be the end of it. Closure, right? The final nail in the coffin of our shattered marriage. But life, as it turns out, has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Just as I was starting to settle into my new routine with Gina, a message appeared on my phone that sent my heart racing all over again. It was from Lisa's mother, Margaret. We hadn't spoken in ages, not since everything went down. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. What could she possibly want now? "Eric, I'm sorry to bother you. I know you've moved on, but Lisa needs help. She's been admitted to a hospital. It's serious. Please, if you have a heart, come see her." A hospital? My mind raced with questions. What happened to her? Why hadn't she called me herself? But then I remembered. The last time I saw Lisa, she was falling apart, losing her job, her friends, everything. The stress must have been too much. Part of me wanted to ignore the message. I'd given her all the chances in the world, and she'd squandered them. But another part, the part that still remembered the girl I'd fallen in love with, who'd been sweet and full of life, couldn't just walk away. I looked over at Gina, who was reading on the couch. When she saw my face, she set her book down, concern etched into her features. What's wrong? Lisa's in the hospital, I said, feeling numb. Her mom says it's serious. Gina's brows furrowed. Are you going to go see her? I don't know, I admitted. I don't even know if I should. Gina studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. Do what you feel is right, Eric. I trust you. It was such a simple statement, but it meant everything to me. Gina trusted me. She wasn't threatened by Lisa. She wasn't trying to control me or push me in one direction. She just trusted me, and that made my decision for me. The hospital was quiet when I arrived, the fluorescent lights casting a sterile glow on the white walls. I found Lisa's room number and stood outside the door for a long time, gathering my thoughts. What was I hoping to find here? Closure? Peace? Or was this some misguided attempt to be the good guy one last time? I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Lisa was lying in the hospital bed, looking frail and worn. She'd lost weight, her skin pale and almost translucent under the harsh lighting. An IV was hooked up to her arm, and a monitor beeped steadily beside her. She looked up as I entered, her eyes widening in shock. "Eric," she croaked, her voice barely more than a whisper. What are you doing here?" "Your mom called me," I said softly, stepping closer but keeping a safe distance. "She said you were in trouble." Lisa's gaze flickered to the door, as if expecting her mother to burst in at any moment. Then she sighed, her whole body sagging against the pillows. "She shouldn't have called you. You shouldn't be here." "Well, I am," I replied, my tone firmer than I intended. "What's going on, Lisa? Why are you here?" She looked down at her hands, fingers trembling slightly. Everything's gone wrong, Eric. After I lost my job, I couldn't find another one. People knew about what I did, and no one wanted to hire me. I ran out of money, and her voice broke, and she closed her eyes, taking a shuddering breath. I made some bad decisions, got involved with the wrong people. Drugs? I asked bluntly, not wanting to beat around the bush. Lisa nodded, her cheeks flushing with shame. "Yeah, it started with painkillers, then, well, you know how it goes. One thing led to another, and here I am. The doctor said I almost overdosed." My heart clenched painfully. I'd known she was struggling, but I hadn't realized it had gotten this bad. "Why didn't you reach out for help?" "Who would help me?" she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Everyone hates me, Eric. I hate me." "Lisa, you—" "Don't," she interrupted, shaking her head. "Don't try to make me feel better. I deserve this. I did this to myself." We sat in silence for a long time, the only sound the steady beep of the monitor. I didn't know what to say. How could I possibly fix this? She'd burned every bridge, destroyed every relationship. And yet, I couldn't just turn my back on her, not when she was like this. "Lisa," I said quietly, "you need to get help. Real help. Rehab, therapy, whatever it takes. You can't keep doing this to yourself." She laughed bitterly. "Help? I can't afford help. I can't even afford rent. The only reason I'm in this hospital is because some good Samaritan called 911 when they found me passed out in an alley." I swallowed hard, guilt and anger swirling inside me. "I'll pay for it," I blurted out before I could stop myself. Her head snapped up, eyes wide with disbelief. "What?" "I'll pay for your treatment," I repeated, my voice steady. "I don't want anything from you. I don't want to get back together. I want you to get better." "Eric, don't argue," I said firmly. "Just let me do this." Tears welled up in her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I saw genuine gratitude on her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't deserve it, but thank you." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I turned to leave, but just as I reached the door, she called out to me, "Eric?" I glanced back, meeting her gaze. "Do you hate me?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. "I know I deserve it, but do you?" I took a deep breath, letting her question hang in the air. Did I hate her? After everything she'd put me through, all the lies, the betrayal, the heartbreak? "No," I said finally, surprising even myself. "I don't hate you, Lisa. I just don't love you anymore." The words seemed to hit her like a physical blow, and she nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "That's fair," she whispered. "That's more than fair." I walked out of the hospital feeling lighter, like a weight I didn't even know I was carrying had been lifted off my shoulders. It wasn't love. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was acceptance. And maybe that was enough. Lisa went into rehab a week later, funded by the insurance I had when we were married, and by some help I arranged with a therapist friend of mine. I visited her a couple of times during the process, just to check in and see how she was doing. Each time, she looked a little better, a little stronger. It wasn't about rekindling anything or reopening old wounds. It was about making peace, for both of us. One day, during my visit, she pulled me aside. "Eric, I'm leaving after this," she said quietly. "I'm going to start over somewhere far away. I want to get away from everything that reminds me of this." I nodded. "I think that's a good idea. Will you be okay?" she asked, looking genuinely concerned. I smiled, the first real smile I'd given her in a long time. "Yeah, Lisa, I'll be okay." And I was. For the first time in a long time, I knew I would be okay. I watched as she walked away, her steps slow but steady. It was the end of an era, the final chapter of a story that had brought so much pain and, eventually, a glimmer of understanding. Gina and I are stronger than ever. We've been talking about moving in together, taking that next step. I know she had her doubts at first. Hell, I had mine. But we've built something real, something solid, something that's not tainted by betrayal or lies. Sometimes, life doesn't give you the ending you expect, but it gives you the one you need. And as I stand here, looking at the future with fresh eyes, I know one thing for sure. I'm ready to let go, ready to move on, ready to truly live again. And that's more than I could have ever hoped for. This is it, Reddit, my story of heartbreak, betrayal, and healing. If there's one piece of advice I can give anyone reading this, it's to never lose yourself in someone else's mistakes. You're stronger than you think, braver than you know, and worthy of happiness, no matter what you've been through.